basically.
All right.
You're right.
Let's behave. Let's behave.
You're right, Seema.
Okay. So anyway, so let's start with quick recap of what we have learned until now, and then we'll go into the content that we are going to speak today. Right. So over a couple of weeks, we have actually started with how exactly the research the process goes on. Right, what all steps that are in that we learned about like some of the important things like we'll have to discover, we'll have to write the hypothesis, we'll have to recognize the variables, we'll have to understand how to measure and so on, right? I mean various process steps. Later on we went on, understood what these variables are, what exactly is the hypothesis, how exactly we can sample. Okay, so we understood types of hypotheses as null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis, and various methods and techniques to sample the data to prove this particular hypothesis. Right, so now we know how to formulate it, we know how to collect the data. So statistics is all about giving mathematical techniques so that you can draw inferences out of whatever the data that you have. Okay, so in this we learned, right, there are actually in the variables we learned there are multiple types of variables. So and we also understand that depending upon the type of the variable, type of the statistical test is also determined, right? So in a way, so there are various techniques, various algorithms, and if it is actually if you manage to get a data which is much more mathematical in nature, we can go for parametric tests. If it is non-math, I mean little bit like categories and all those stuff, we have to go for some other types of tests called as non-parametric test. So we already went through those particular things, and we also went through that okay, yeah, what kind of errors that do happen in hypothesis at a very high level. Type 1 error, type 2 error, and when exactly type 1 error happens, when exactly type 2 error really happens, right? And then we slowly moved into a little more advanced part of, I mean, we got introduction in terms of mean, mode, standard deviation, variance, and all those stuff. And we moved into a slightly advanced topic where we are talking about distribution, right? So we talked about normal distribution. When we actually do the frequency, based on frequency, once we draw the chart, there is a distribution that really comes, which is in that ulta view U shape. And using that we can identify standard deviation, we can identify certain parameters related to that particular data. So now here what we are actually understanding today is there are actually two things when it comes to statistics that you are actually trying to draw it, right? One is called as a descriptive statistics and the other is inferential statistics. So we are going to actually go into details into this descriptive and inferential, and then slowly go into details of hypothesis testing and test of significance and all those stuff. Okay, so the difference between descriptive and inferential, it's very, I mean, very simple to understand. Descriptive is something that you have a data and you are trying to describe the data in various types, right? Let's say, for example, you showed a kid and you wanted somebody to describe that kid. So you can say that, okay, yeah, he is 4 feet 6 inches tall. His weight is 32 kgs. He is white in complexion, etc., etc. Right? This is like describing that particular kid. So descriptive statistics is also about describing the data that is currently there in the hand. So we have some data, we collected some data using our various research techniques, sampling or whatever that we had. And now if somebody wants you to actually describe that particular data, descriptive statistics is what it is used for. So whatever the basic concepts that we have learned till now, right? Mean, mode, standard deviation, and all those stuff. These are all descriptive statistics. So I'll go into few more types of descriptive as such. Why descriptive? Because if you're talking about average, okay, so you collected data related to marks scored by psychology students. So, and you are saying that what is the average marks? So here you are just describing that, okay, on an average, psychology students scored some 55% as an average, right? So you are describing the data using certain type of measurement. So similarly, if somebody is talking about standard deviation, or somebody is talking about Z score or whatever, it's all about describing this particular data. Okay, and it is various types of description. As I said, right? I mean, for a child, when you are describing, you are talking about height, you are talking about weight, you are talking about complexion. So all these are different parameters to describe. Similarly, all these are different measures to describe. So what is inferential? So now inferential is something that you have data, you collected data, and using this data, you are not just describing this data, you are rather drawing inference. Okay, so if I give the same example of kid, right? So now kid is like talking too much. He's like, he is talking continuously, and you actually see that and say that, okay, yeah, see this kid is talking so much. Imagine like what those his parents would have been like, how they are tortured. He doesn't even stop talking at home as well. They must be continuously, bothered about him talking. How exactly they would manage this kid? So you don't know about their parents, and you are assuming here that whatever the talking that he is doing is continuing at home, and that is also something which is painful for their parents. So you are just drawing conclusion out of what you are seeing, and you are inferencing something, right? So it is not about describing this kid, it is about taking this particular kid, observing him, and then drawing conclusions which are not really there in hand. Okay, so this becomes, I mean, we'll talk about few more examples from the statistical terms. So this is the basic difference. So let's double click and go inside what exactly is there within the descriptive statistics, right? So is everybody clear on the main definition of descriptive and inference?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's go into details of descriptive, right? So what we are actually saying, descriptive is describing the content. So if I actually divide it in two parts, right, the way the description really goes on, one is how exactly, basically based on organizing the data, I show something. I organize data in such a way that it describes something about the data. And the other is summarization. You organize and calculate something and write a summary about it, right? So these are two broad categories, if you say, right? When I say organization, so organization has got further subdivisions like classifying, right? So there are multiple ways of you showing the classification, saying that, okay, yeah, if you are trying to arrange a profits of a company based on the year, what you are actually doing, you are putting a tabulated form and you are actually classifying that per year. You are just classifying, saying that, okay, yeah, for 2001, this is the profit, 2002, this is the profit. So this data, by seeing this classification itself, it's kind of describing something about that particular data. It is telling that so and so, oh yeah, I can easily see this and say that 2004 is the most profitable year for this company, right? So this is kind of a way of describing it. So similarly, there are various ways of classifying the content. The way that you could actually classify, some of those particular ways are like exclusive, inclusive, open-ended, and all those stuff. To give you an example, right? Let's say you are classifying the data based on the frequency. You remember the examples which were given in the normal distribution, right? I mean, you say that let's say if this is the table which is talking about marks. So number of students who got marks from 0 to 10 are 4. Number of students who got marks from 10 to 20 are 6. Right? I mean, you are trying to classify the marks and the frequency at which, or rather number of students that are actually, securing those particular marks. So the way this particular data is like you have, let's say you have a kid who scored 10 marks. Okay. So now the 10 is actually coming in the top row and also bottom row. Okay, so this way of classifying is called an exclusive. Even though you actually mention it, you tend to actually put that 10 marks guy in the second row, rather not in the first row. But it's like there is some kind of an overlapping boundaries. The higher limit of earlier boundary and the lower limit of second entry overlaps, right? If you see another way of doing it, you actually make sure that there is no overlap. You rather have 9 marks here and it starts from 10 here. Okay. So similarly, what you do, instead of avoiding all the confusion, you rather have something like 0.5, so that 4 is clearly inside this, 5 is clearly inside this. You don't even have boundaries. So it is like having a clarity on it. So these are like a pretty smaller categorizations, but net to net, what you need to understand is we are talking about classification as one of the way to describe the properties of your data. The classification can be based on years, classification can be based on gender, classification can be based on frequency, whatever it is. Okay. And the other way is to tabulate. So basically you drawing the table. So classification doesn't talk about drawing it in a table, right? I mean, even though you actually see a table here, you can even classify it in this way. You can represent it in whatever way it is. Classification is mainly talking about how you are going to classify it. Okay, tabulation is about putting a table and putting the figures across. Graph, we don't have to explain about graph. There are various types of graph, like histogram or whatever the charts that we have actually seen, right? Even for that matter, frequency polygon or frequency curve, all these particular things are various types of graphs. Even graphs are actually telling something about the data. By seeing it, you can understand the data. So these are all various techniques to actually organize your data and tell something about the data. It all falls under descriptive statistics. Okay. So any questions at this stage? I'm not really going into details of various types of graphs and all those things, which I think most of us would know what are those particular types: line graph, histogram, bar graph, frequency graph, and various other things. I mean, there is nothing which is significantly different from what we have actually seen as various graphs. Okay, so that is about organizing the data. So now coming to the second part, which is summarization of the data. So what summarization we talked about? So organization of data is your organizing thing, and then you're describing the data. Summarization is you are actually making some calculations, and then you're drawing some conclusion and telling, okay, yeah, now I organize the data. Now I finally calculate the average of average marks in the class. Okay, now this is the mean marks for so and so class. So you summarized. So summarize is is kind of, you calculate and then you come up with certain thing, right? You come up with a summary of it. So there are various types of summarization that we actually do. One broad category for summarization is central tendency. Okay, so central tendency, if you remember that normal distribution, we have that U curve. So we are talking about that central figure, where exactly the center population is falling. Mean, mode, median, all the three are describing the central tendency. Basically, you can say that central tendency is like height and mean, mode, median are like various ways of describing the height, kind of a thing, right? I mean, so when I draw a parallel with the example that we talked about, height of a kid, somebody is describing the height of a kid. So here we are describing a certain property of the data, which is called as a central tendency. And central tendency, there are three major, or rather popular ways of measuring the central tendency, that is mean, mode, median. Okay. So now the second aspect of it is variation. Okay, so here variation is, we are talking about variability of the data. You got the data and you are saying that I got data which is so distinct. So now this so distinct can be described in various ways. You can talk about range. I can say that in my class I have students who scored 10 marks and who scored 50 marks. So I have students which are ranging from 10 to 50 marks. So it talks about the variability in your class, right? So similarly, mean deviation is nothing but how many people are like the average deviation from the mean. So similarly, variance, standard deviation, coefficient of variation. So all these are different ways of telling that, okay, how distinct your data is, how varied your data is. This is another technique, another property, which is variation. So we have central tendency, we have variation, we have position next. So position is nothing but you are telling that, okay, I have so and so student, and he falls as like 90 percentile. So you are talking about positioning. Okay, so position is where it is falling under. So there is a different thing, quartile. What you are actually going to do, you are going to divide the entire data into 4 quarters and tell that in which quarter your data is falling. So 6 marks is falling under third quartile. 8 marks is falling under fourth quartile in whatever the example that you are actually seeing. So you are just approximately telling that into which quartile that it is falling on. Okay, and the fourth type of describing or summarizing the data is shape. So if whether you are any question or okay, so the fourth way of summarizing your data is shape. So shape is telling like whether your normal distribution is left skewed, right skewed, or is it a proper normal distribution. How exactly kurtosis is there, whether your your curve is like leptocryptic or mesocryptic, or the other one. So basically, this is also talking about how exactly your data is distributed, right? So all these are used to summarize your data. Okay, so this is also falling under descriptive statistics. Okay, so all these descriptive statistics, most of them we already learned in our previous classes on how to calculate it. So this is generally done on univariate data. So basically, it's like you have one variable and you have description. You are trying to actually describe that particular variable, saying that, okay, mean of the marks is so and so, it is falling in this particular range and all those stuff. Okay. So any questions till now, or is it clear?
All clear.
Cool. Right. Okay, so there are a couple of things which we haven't actually gone through before. One is this quartile, which is pretty simple to understand as a concept. The other one is coefficient of variation. So we actually understood the variation, but we haven't understood the coefficient of variation. This is generally used to actually describe, or rather it is slightly used for the comparison purposes, where you would want to actually, this is nothing but as a formula, it is measured as standard deviation divided by mean. So if you have two different data sets and you want to actually compare the variation between these two, then you actually use this kind of coefficient of variation. For example, if you want to, just to give you an example, let's say student A, you want to find out whether student A is more consistent or student B. Okay, you have mean marks of student A, you have mean marks of student B, you have standard deviation of student A, you have standard deviation of student B. Then how you are going to conclude who is more consistent? The one which is having less variability is what is more consistent. Okay, so basically you calculate coefficient of variance, and whichever student has got lesser percentage, which is as a coefficient of variance, you declare that as more consistent, because the variance of that particular student is less. I mean, he is consistently scoring certain marks when compared to the other student. Okay, so this is other type of measuring the variation. We don't have problems, or rather I don't think there is any other algorithms that really use this particular coefficient of variation down the line, but this is just for your information that apart from just variance, there is something called as a coefficient of variance. Okay, so the other question which actually, from the exam point of view, which came is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of descriptive statistics, right? So, I mean, if we summarize whatever that we have learned above, right? I mean, it collects and summarizes a large amount of data. It is fairly straightforward process. There is nothing which you are actually doing as inferring, right? I mean, you are just applying certain formulas and then you are describing the data using that. And this actually forms the basis for your rigorous analysis. So in case if you want to actually do further analysis, this summarization forms certain basics, right? So it can be used on the raw data. It examines various tendencies, right? I mean, it can be both graphical and numerical. So these are all like normal points which you can automatically come up with if you want to actually understand, if you want to actually describe whatever that we talked about, right? So what are the disadvantages? So so in case of descriptive, right? Yes, it actually talks about various tendencies, but statistics is a pretty sticky subject. I mean, there is one very famous example which is is talked about related to if somebody wants to describe what is the amount of water in a glass, the way you talk about it really matters to give an impression. So somebody can say it is half full, somebody can say which is half empty. Okay, so half empty might give you a different picture. If somebody says it is half full, it might give you a different picture, but both are correct, right? Descriptive doesn't really talk about interpretation in detail. I mean, it can be used for misinterpretation as well, right? It depends on what you are actually declaring, how you are declaring it. So, so that is one of the disadvantages of descriptive statistics. So, and it doesn't account for randomness. So it actually it deals with data which is there in hand. So there is nothing like randomness or anything like that. So here, like whatever the data that you have, it actually summarizes it and tells you. So it doesn't really care about anything. And obviously, sometimes if you have a very limited sample size, right? You have 4 students in your class, and you are saying my average marks in my class is like 45 out of 50, which it doesn't say anything. You have only 4 students. I mean, it might mislead other people saying that average marks in my class is 45. So with smaller samples, it can be misused, or it might not represent the right things. Okay, so that's about descriptive. So we are going into inferential, which is much more complex in terms of understanding, right? Before going to inferential, any particular questions, or is it like everything clear? We can go into inferential statistics. So I take it as yes. So silence means I hope people did not sleep.
Go ahead, Praveen. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So now most interesting part, inferential. So this is something that you will have to probably a little more concentrate to understand. So this is more tricky part, and most of our statistics is around inferential rather than descriptive, right? So what happens in our typical research? Somebody wants to actually study, something like, what is the average consumption of chocolates in Karnataka, right? So if somebody wants to actually study chocolate consumption in Karnataka, can we actually go and sample it, across Karnataka? No, we can only take few samples, and based on the sample, we can probably say that, okay, yeah, I took sample from various ways. I used proper sampling technique, and in the sample, I got so and so average. That okay, average consumption of chocolates in a day is 2 chocolates in a day, based on whatever the samples that I got. So based on that, I can estimate that Karnataka might be eating around 2 to 5 chocolates in a day with 95% of confidence. Right. So I took some sample, and then based on the sample, I am now trying to actually infer something for the entire Karnataka. And most of the research that what we actually do goes in these lines only. So even when we are talking about hypothesis, it is very unlikely that you are able to take entire population and then conduct a test. Right? So what you will do, you will sample it, you take it from the sample, and then you apply that particular whatever the summary that you got from the sample to the entire population. So that is where these inferential statistics holds lot of value. Okay, so you use it for 2 different purposes. So as such, when you are actually talking about inferential statistics, broadly there are 2 purposes to it. First purpose is about estimation. Okay, so estimation, by the name of it, what you are actually doing, the same example that I give, average consumption of chocolate, what I am actually saying is, okay, I have sample, and in the sample I got like 1 chocolate per a day, and based on this I am estimating what is the average consumption for entire Karnataka. So I am estimating here. Okay, so I am drawing an inference and estimating for a particular value. The other way of inference is typical hypothesis testing. We talked about null hypothesis, average, alternate hypothesis, and all those stuff, right? The hypothesis could be like, okay, in a particular test, does boys and girls score equal marks in so and so psychology related test? So is males and females same in so and so subject, right? This is a typical hypothesis which can actually, if you take null hypothesis for it, yes, they are same, gender doesn't matter. If you take alternate hypothesis, gender do matter, and there is some difference between male and female as far as the marks are concerned, right? So to prove this hypothesis, to test this hypothesis, we use inference statistics. So using inference statistics, we applied these particular test techniques to draw some conclusion and either prove or disprove whatever the hypothesis that we have in place. Rather, prove and disprove is a wrong word. Rather, accept null hypothesis or reject null hypothesis. Okay. So these are 2 categories of usage, you can say, from the inferential statistics. One, estimation. The other, we are talking about hypothesis testing. Okay. So now if I come to estimation has got 2 more types. One type is point estimation. Okay. So what is point estimation? I have sample mean. I have average chocolate consumption from my sample. Okay. Now using this average chocolate consumption per day in my sample, I am trying to say that, okay, yeah, what is the average consumption of Karnataka? I'm just point blank saying that my sample gave, okay, 1 chocolate per day. So I'm saying that even entire Karnataka population might have 1.5 samples per day. That's all. 1.5 chocolates per day. That's all. So I inferred to a particular point saying that, okay, yes, the average population, the average consumption of chocolate for Karnataka population is so and so 1.5 chocolate per day. I gave that particular estimation based on my sample. So I'm fixing on to a point. Second way of estimation is interval estimation. What is interval estimation? I am telling with 95% of confidence, I can say that average consumption of chocolates in Karnataka lies between 0.75 chocolates per day to 2.5 chocolates per day. Between this, there would be consumption, and I am pretty sure with 95% of confidence that it would always fall under this range. So here what I am actually telling, I am guessing an interval with some confidence. So this is also I'm inferring basically from my sample itself. I am trying to infer, but I am inferring the interval. So this is kind of an interval estimation. Okay.
So point estimate and interval estimate, they only differ by confidence level.
More than confidence level, here emphasis is on range. Basically, you are giving range in case of interval estimation. In case of point estimation, you are not giving range. You are actually telling a point. You are saying that, okay, yes, average consumption is 1.25 chocolates per day.
Okay,
Okay,
but
here you are saying ranging from 0.75 chocolates to 2.5 chocolates. Here you are talking about range. That is the
So
main
it
point to be
lies-
underlined.
So
it lies between a range.
that. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So any questions till now?
so whichever is the, whether it is point or interval, both are just an estimate. No, correct exact value.
Exact value. So the confidence level might be there even for point for that matter. So you can say that with 95% of the confident population mean is 2 chocolates, but you are still sticking to a point. Here you are sticking to an interval. So that is the main difference. Okay, so keep confidence level aside. Okay, that might be there in case of both, but here it is a range, there it is a point. Yes,
Okay.
in both cases, it is an estimate because it is an inference. You are not too sure about the exact point. You are just estimating it. Okay. So that is about the estimation. Okay. So now going further. So coming to the hypothesis. So we talked about hypothesis. So I'm not really explaining what is null hypothesis, what is alternate hypothesis and all. We also talked about type 1 error and type 2 error, right? So just a very quick recap. Type 1 error is about null hypothesis is true actually. Okay. But you are saying null hypothesis, I will reject. Okay. Whereas if you are talking about type 2 error, you are saying you actually null hypothesis is rejectable. Basically, null hypothesis is false. It is rejectable. But you are saying that no, I am not able to reject null hypothesis. That is type 2 error. Okay, to give you a very intuitive example again. So doctor is saying to this man, saying that you are pregnant. Okay, he came for a pregnancy test and doctor confirmed that you are pregnant. So here null hypothesis for this particular man is by default, let's say if nothing is conclusive, you should not be pregnant, right? So basically null hypothesis should be true. This man can't be pregnant. but this guy is actually concluding, even though null hypothesis is true, he's rejecting the null hypothesis, saying that was no, don't think you're not a pregnant, you're a pregnant, right? So this is this is type 1 error. Type 2 error, for a pregnant lady, somebody is saying that you are not a pregnant, though she should actually reject the null hypothesis and say that okay, you're a pregnant, but unfortunately she doesn't. She did not get conclusive proof to say that you are a pregnant. So this is type 2 error. Okay, so anyway, so I am hoping that everybody could recall whatever the type 1 error and type 2 error is all about. So any questions here, or we can move to the next?
All clear. You can carry on.
Okay. So that is all in this particular chapter of descriptive and inferential statistics. Okay. So so we completed one full block, and now we are going into the other one, which is third block, second unit, which is significance of mean differences, standard error, and error of the mean, right? So this is basically t-test and other things where this particular chapter talks about. So this might take some time. So what I'll do today is I will try to explain some of these particular terms like significance level, etc., and then we can go into problem solving for tomorrow. Okay. So so let me explain few terms which are like used quite frequently. So we talked about significance level. Right, significance level is nothing but, and even before starting this particular chapter, right? I mean, one thing that I would want to tell is, so we talked about inferential statistics. How we are actually going into t-test. T-test is one of those inferential statistics technique to actually do this particular hypothesis testing. We talked about hypothesis. So how exactly this hypothesis can be tested, it uses various statistical methods to test, and t-test is one of the way to actually do the testing of the hypothesis. Okay. So now, so how exactly, so various, so now these terms, whatever that we are actually trying to understand are all like, for example, we know how to calculate mean. We know how to calculate mode, median, standard deviation, all these descriptive statistics we learned how to calculate, right? So now this t-test also has got some calculations to be made, because estimation doesn't come just on fly, right? Estimation has got some calculations as well. So even though inferential statistic is coming up with certain estimate which is not there in your data, it doesn't mean that you are actually on the fly doing some finger in the air and say that, oh yeah, my chocolates for consumption for my sample is 1. So I'm estimating it would be around 1.5, 1.5, 1.75. No, it is not a guesswork. So it actually is derived using certain calculations. So t-test and some of the basics that we are going to talk about are those calculations that we make before we actually conclude. So it has, this chapter has got two parts to it. Okay. So one talks about the sampling error and standard error. Okay. And the other part to this particular chapter is t-test. So there are two types of calculations, or rather a broad calculations this chapter has got. One, sampling error and standard error. Second, t-test. Okay, what is sampling error and standard error? It is actually estimation technique. So we talked about two things, right? One is estimation, the other is hypothesis testing in the inferential statistics. Standard error allows us to do estimation. Okay, t-test allows us to do hypothesis testing. Okay, so this chapter covers both. So that is the context behind this particular chapter. So now, before we really go into those particular calculations of the t-test, sampling, sample error or standard error and all those stuff. We are trying to understand few terms here so that those terms really doesn't puzzle us when we go into those calculations. Okay, so that is the context behind these particular terms. Okay, so the first term, significance level. So this is in some form or the other. We already talked in the other classes, but a quick recap. So this is about probability of making the wrong decision when null hypothesis is true. That is what is the significance level. So what we are actually saying by saying that my significance level is 0.05. Okay. What I am actually saying is I am reducing the probability of my type 1 error. So I have type 1 error, right? So one thing that we'll have to definitely understand while doing all our hypothesis testing, especially in the inferential statistics, right? We have two types of error, type 1 error, type 2 error. So now we are trying to actually estimate from whatever the data that we have, right? So when we are trying to estimate, right, always estimation is prone for error. So in a given data, always there is a chance of type 1 error and type 2 error. Always there is a chance. You can't make it 0. You can't be sure 100% saying that, okay, yes, my estimate is perfect. No, it is after all an estimate. There is some amount of error that is a possibility. So now what the significance level is doing is only qualifying that what is the error that you are okay with. You are, by telling the significance level, what you are saying is, okay, I am okay to take 5% of risk. Even if a chance of 5%, I'm okay to take the risk. I can conduct the test based on this acceptable risk and conclude something, right? If I don't want to take risk at all, because my nature of my research is I want it to be accurate, then I might say that my significance level here is 0.01. Okay. So you can adjust what exactly is the significance that your hypothesis would really require to. Okay. So now everybody can question saying that, okay, yeah, why do I want to actually take 5% of risk? I'll try to keep it minimum 1%. No, I'll keep even less. Why I have to actually make a compromise by increasing my risk? Okay. So now that is where the tricky point is. So when you are actually making this decision, you are actually trying to balance between type 1 error and type 2 error. If you decrease this risk, let's say if you are saying that I don't want to take risk at all, I don't want to disprove null hypothesis unless and until I'm too confident about it, then what you're actually doing, you're stepping into the zone of making type 2 error. Because even though you have significant difference, but you want to be 100% sure. So you might say that, no, I am too pedantic to actually, reject my null hypothesis. I still want to more and more analyze. So at any point of time, you will not be able to conclude that I can reject null hypothesis with, with some confidence, right? I mean, I can't reject my null hypothesis because I am looking for perfection here. So if I am taking too much confidence in type 1 error, I might get into the zone of type 2 error. Then I will be doing type 2 error, right? So it is kind of a balancing act. So that is how you actually select the significance level, because nature of your research really tells that, okay, yeah, what is the acceptable risk for you? So it is not about being too perfect. If you are trying to be too perfect, then you are going into type 2 error, because you are saying that unless and until I get perfect proof, I'm not going to reject null hypothesis. That means what you are going to do, if I have to be perfect in guessing how many chocolates that Karnataka is eating on an average, what I'll end up doing it, I'll have to measure for entire Karnataka. Then only I can be 100% sure about it. Can I do that particular test? It is significantly costly. My research would never conclude, right? So here we are trying to understand a concept that how type 1 error and type 2 error are related and how you are going to do the balancing act. Okay, so significance level is nothing but you are trying to say that what is the acceptability that I have for making type 1 error. Sample size is decided based on what is my acceptability for making type 2 error. If I'm too worried about making type 2 error, then I have to actually have a very large sample. Okay, so while doing research, you first actually establish your hypothesis and you define that, okay, yeah, this is the significance level that I will be happy upon, and then based on that I'll actually proceed. Okay, so any questions on significance level?
Are there any guidelines on choosing the significance level?
Okay, so normally it is 5% risk normally. Okay, so if nothing is given in the problem statement, it is generally 5% of risk. Okay, but it all depends on type of the research. Typically in a medical field, you are trying to actually correlating certain diseases with medicines, let's say in certain fields. What happens is type 1 error becomes too costly. You can't make type 1 error at all, because type 1 error is something which is very, let's say, you proved something like, okay, this tablet makes a difference to cure cancer. Let's say you came up with that particular research, right? And you started administering that particular tablets to all cancer patients. You have to be very much sure about whatever the result that you have got, right? I mean, you can't really, make the type 1 error in this particular case. In that case, what you will have much more stringent risk taking percentage here. Okay, so it depends on your research. That is exactly what it will determine. Normally it is 5%. Okay,
Yeah.
so there is another term. Okay, while we are talking about the level of significance called a statistical significance, right? So statistical significance is little different from the level of significance. Okay, so statistical significance, right? Let's say you are actually concluding certain thing, saying that I take my dog every day to a walk. On an average, in a month, 25 days I take my dog to a walk. I did some descriptive statistics and I came up with this particular statistic. Okay, so now if I just think that every day I just go out and then come inside, that is what is the walk qualification for me, right? So whatever the statistic that I actually published, does it make any significance? Whether even if I take 25 days every day my dog to just the driveway and come back, will it be called as a walk? Right? So basically you are saying that whatever the thing that you are actually publishing, right, it's not actually a reliable data, or it doesn't make any difference. It's not significant thing to actually, to publish this. Similarly, in the medical research, somebody did a test saying that, so to prove that, okay, so I discovered a tablet and I will actually conduct a research by comparing two types of patients, right? Patient one, I'll give a placebo treatment. That means I will not give the tablet to him. I'll give a dummy tablet to him. And patient two, I'll give this particular tablet. And in the end, I will try to actually evaluate cholesterol levels for this particular patient. Okay. So now for the patient whom I didn't treat, I just gave a dummy tablet, is being compared with the patient which I gave this particular tablet. Okay. And now after this particular test, I publish a result saying that, okay, I see a significant difference if somebody is taking this particular tablet. Okay. But The thing is, what I compared with a patient who did not take tablet at all. And then I am saying that there is a significant difference between these two patients. But let's say, after taking this tablet for 2 months, cholesterol level got reduced by 10 points, let's say, right? So even though your tablet is effective, it is not really so much effective, but you are actually publishing a research saying that my tablet is significantly different by comparing with the wrong data. I should have actually compared with some other tablet or some other way, and then prove that, okay, yes, this is improvising so and so. Here, what I am actually doing, I am comparing with the wrong data and then inferring something out of it and making the wrong conclusions out of it. So this is called as a statistical significance. So this is not same as whatever the level of significance that we are actually talking about here. Okay, significance level is different from statistical significance. Okay, so significance level is about what is that the probability of making wrong decision, or rather probability of making type 1 error. That is exactly what is the significance level. Okay, and this does not talk about statistical significance. Statistical significance needs to be evaluated holistically using those, if you remember, validity, reliability, and all those stuff, right? So those things would come into picture when we are talking about statistical significance. So if you are actually trying to fail certain validity tests, construct validity, content validity, and all those stuff, those are the ones which are going to actually check your statistical significance. Okay. So is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. So so now it is 10 o'clock. So we can take pause at any point of time. Let me know. We can take pause
Praveen.
here as well.
Praveen,
Yeah. Yes.
I have a small doubt or an example. Just see if this is correct. Okay. If we buy, if you're going to build something and we buy 100 kilos of steel, okay, and the shopkeeper gives us just 99 kilos, 1 kilo short. Okay, and not 1 kilo short, say 1 gram short. It would not be really significant. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But when we go buy dal from a grocery shop, okay, again, 1 gram really does not make such a difference, but it makes a difference when we compare it with steel.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we go to buy gold, okay, there, if the shopkeeper gives us 1 gram less, is that what is, I mean, it makes a huge difference for us,
Yes.
for the buyers,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
yes.
is that an example for statistical significance?
Yes, it does. It does qualify to be statistical significance. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So guys, is that a clearer example? Can you get it? So it is significant. So the 1 gram is much more significant when we buy gold. Is that right, Praveen?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah. So, so that's the whole picture, right?
Correct. That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Praveen. Yeah.
Yeah. To summarize all those, whatever that we have learned, and then we can probably close it for today. So rest of the terms, whether it is confidence interval, I'm just trying to browse through what is going to come tomorrow. Right, we are going to talk about confidence level, confidence interval, z-score, p-value, how exactly they are correlated with each other, what is confidence interval, what is confidence level, and then we are going to talk about degree of freedom, and then go into standard error and how exactly we can do estimation. So we can go through a few problems to actually do this estimation using the standard error, how estimation really works. Okay, once we do estimation, we can actually go to the t-test, and then we can actually talk about how to we can solve various types of t-tests, and then how exactly we can prove a hypothesis. What is the null hypothesis? What is an alternate hypothesis? How we can reject or accept null hypothesis using t-test. Right. So this is exactly what is pending in this particular chapter. So once we do that, I think we are good. right? So this is what is going to come tomorrow. And today, just to do a quick recap, what we understood the descriptive and inferential statistics. We understood hypothesis. We recapped what is this particular hypothesis testing and type 1, type 2 error are, how exactly this type 1 and type 2 error are related to each other. And we also talked about the level of significance and how it is related with this particular type 1 error, whatever that we are talking about. Right? So that's exactly what we have learned today. Okay, so I think that's all from me today.
Thanks, Praveen. Now, I'm still not fully convinced, clear about the statistical significance and levels of significance. I understand what it is, but I think I'm not very sure of the concept.
Yeah, so to tell at a very easy thing, statistical significance is about yesterday we talked about these things, right? I mean, we talked about reliability and validity. Okay, so all about reliability and validity is statistical significance. Okay, so it is like I'm trying to actually, I'm saying to give you a very a simple example, right? I am conducting a simple mathematical test. Okay, I'll give you a simple example where I conducted a mathematical test to measure intelligence. Okay, so I gave a simple problems and then I say that, okay, yeah, based on this score, I'm going to say that this guy is very intelligent, this guy is average intelligent, this guy is less intelligent. Okay, so here what I'm actually missing, I'm actually missing a point, basic point, that whatever the test that I'm actually doing is only testing the mathematical aspect. As an intelligence, there are other quadrants as well, right? So based on this test, I draw some conclusion and I publish a result saying that, okay, yeah, so I do a hypothesis and say that, okay, average intelligence of MA psychology students is so and so. I published a research. First of all, I used a wrong technique to go and measure the IQ level. And then based on that, I am actually drawing some conclusions and publishing the research, right? So what is happening, whatever the result that I published is not statistically significant.
Okay.
Okay, so all those techniques which we talked about in yesterday's class, that is reliability and validity, will all come into picture to ensure statistical significance. Okay, and statistical significance is not measured using 0.5 statistically significant, 0.1 statistically, no, it is not associated with any figure in case of statistical significance. It is more about checking reliability and validity of my test.
Okay, so would I be right in saying that levels of significance basically, calculates the risk of error?
Risk of error, correct.
Statistical significance is basically, it looks at the credibility or the strength of the whatever results or the data.
Research itself.
Yeah,
For that particular context, is it like for that particular context, whether it's relevant? Is that what it means, Praveen?
Yes, exactly. In that context, is it relevant or not, right? So strength of the data is little, I would really hold on to that particular word, because the reason
or credibility of the data.
Credibility of the data, yes, you can say
Actually,
credibility.
more than the credibility of data is the credibility of the test itself, of the study itself, right?
Correct. That's right. That's right.
It's because data, then reliability comes into picture on how well the data was collected. But if the experiment itself or the study itself is, like you mentioned, is testing the mathematical ability, I mean, giving a mathematics test to assess intelligence, there is that correlation between the test, the intention, and what is being done itself is off. So
correct.
The study itself is questionable there.
It fails one of those. Yeah, it fails one of those validity tests there. So that's exactly where we are coming at. Yes, that's correct. Whereas levels of significance is purely talking about what is the error that is acceptable to you. Because here in inferential statistics, always there is a chance of error. You are just qualifying that what is the error that I am okay with. Okay, so this is a risk which I am willing to take, and then I am okay with it.
Got it.
Okay, so yeah. So anything else?
For now, we're good, Praveen. Thank you. I think we'll have to revisit this session if we have any doubts. So, but thanks. I think it was quite
Yeah,
clear.
sure. Yeah,
I
we
think
can
stop the
definitely.
recording.